Hello, and welcome to the Shea Hates Everything podcast, where two brothers argue about video games and other shit that matters. My name is Shea, and today I hate needing money to live.
And my name's Kyle, and today I hate my need to collect things. Two hates that I feel like go hand in hand.
I was going to say,
well,
one of those things isn't a need.
They're thematically connected.
Yeah, because needing money to live, unfortunately true.
But I gotta collect to live, Shay.
Do you?
I'm like a Katamari. I must continue to roll things up in my vicinity and collect them. So someday Dad can throw me into space and I become a star.
Lovely. But yeah, I don't have a need to collect things. I do have a desire to experience things.
That's
good. It's hard to do that when you can't spend money because you don't have an income. Right. That's really where mine is coming from. It's not even just needing money to live. It's that the money that I have needs to be spent on living and surviving rather than having money to spend on thriving. Like buying useless old video games and collectibles, like my younger brother is doing.
So is this where you announce, you shadow drop a Patreon for the Shea Hates Everything podcast?
Ew. No.
Send your donations to...
Absolutely not. We need to figure out this podcast a lot better before I would want to ask for money for people to listen to it.
Yeah.
Speaking of, as we dive into the agenda, Kyle and I were just texting prior to recording, and we comment a lot about how this podcast is extremely long, and it is very fun. It is long because we're both long-winded, but it's also long because we do it once a month, and we just over the course of a month collect a ton of things that we feel like we need to talk about. And we don't. I feel like
it's not even necessarily things that we want to talk about. It's just
we feel like we are supposed to, or that we should. I feel like the word need keeps coming back. And I just use the word things we need to talk about. But the point is we don't. We don't need to talk about a lot of the things that we end up talking about. And so we were just talking about this prior to recording today. So we're going to mess with the format and the structure and frankly the actual content of the webinar. God,
the webinar?
America.
Oh my God.
I've been in corporate America for too long.
Dude,
We're going to mess with the structure of the podcast live, and then we're going to retool in between this episode and the next one and come with a bit more of a formalized approach and changes that we want to transparently talk about. The reason I address this up front is I am anticipating this is a much shorter episode than the previous episodes have been. That is by design. We want to make this a little bit tighter, a little bit easier to listen to, and a little bit more relevant.
Yeah.
Just because it's more fun for us. It's better for you as listeners. But this show started as an excuse for Kyle and I to hang out and talk about shit.
Right.
However, we decided to record it for other people to listen to, because it isn't just us talking about bullshit. People listen to this and, for some reason, enjoy it. What I don't want to happen is we condense the podcast down and we get rid of some segments that you all really enjoyed. So the best way to give us feedback on this episode, and especially next month's episode, will be to send us an email to info@sheahateseverything.com. I would love feedback on what are the things you like most about this podcast, and what are some things that you think we could kill and you wouldn't care so much. So we're going to take that approach in this episode.
If anybody says you can kill Kyle and I wouldn't care, and it was just the Shea podcast, that is not feedback I will appreciate.
It's already called the Shea Hates Everything podcast, so honestly, if we lost you, it wouldn't change anything.
You wouldn't have to change anything, really. It would be like the Jeff Gerstmann show. It'd just be you talking to the community.
Yeah, and we all know how engaging that podcast is. Look, I love Jeff Gerstmann.
I love him.
I had to stop listening.
It's hard.
I had to stop listening because you need to have more than one person
it's hard.
On a podcast. Look, I could talk by myself for 4 hours. Would anyone want to listen to it? No. But yeah, so that's sort of like a little bit of the background and really like where we were coming into this episode. But looking at the agenda, we are going to talk through a bunch of the games we've been playing. Not everything. We're going to take a smarter lens or a smarter sort of knife. You were cutting through the fat and the chaff and the gristle that we tend to talk about, and just really focus on the things that are like super relevant that we're extra passionate about. And then we might throw in some other things occasionally, time permitting. The point is we're trying to trim as much as we can in keeping it engaging and fun, not just cutting everything. So we got a bunch of games to talk about, including our August Game Club game, Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess, which is a ridiculous name. Mm-hmm. Kyle's been playing some Star Wars Outlaws, a million other things. I want to talk about Helldivers 2. I haven't talked about Helldivers 2 in a couple of months. There's been drama.
There's been stuff
around Helldivers 2, so I want to talk about that. I also played some Dragon's Dogma 2.
Ooh, interesting.
Crazy?
Yeah.
Kyle's been playing a lot of games that we have talked about as part of Next Fest, things like that. So thank goodness you're here. Cat Quest 3 and Btn Bosses. And then I'm still pursuing my retro gaming path. I wrapped up some time with KOTOR. I've started Final Fantasy VII, and I also started Fallout New Vegas. And I'll tell you why I started Fallout New Vegas.
Okay.
And then we both saw the Deadpool Wolverine movie. And we don't talk a lot about movies and shows and stuff on this podcast anymore. But you and I are kind of checked out of Marvel. And this, I feel like, in a lot of ways, is like our last hurrah with Marvel movies.
For sure.
So that'll be fun to talk about. We're going to introduce a new segment, which is going to kind of replace the news. So that's one of the things that we talked about is, hey, we're doing this once a month. We have all these news stories that a lot of times by the time we are talking about them, they're stale. We don't really have anything of value to add. A lot of cases, it's like bad news that just sends me down a rant for 10 minutes.
Right.
That's just like not as good a use of time. So we're going to have a new segment called Show and Tell, title patent pending. And so Kyle's going to talk about his collectathon experiences lately.
Yeah.
And like what drives that and why, and also walk through the ridiculous amount of things that he has been buying over the last couple of weeks. We are bringing back the Shea Hate of the Week. Don't know that it'll be an every month segment. I tried to stop doing it every month because one, it always makes me angry. And two, there's plenty of other shit that we end up talking about that makes me angry anyway. But this one I feel like is relevant to this month and to like one of the games that's been coming out lately.
Right.
For the September game releases, we would normally walk through like all the big games that we enjoy, that we want to highlight. Instead, what we're going to do is just pick a couple that we want to make sure everybody's like aware of, that we're excited to talk about. And then what I'm going to do is take our long list, and frankly, like the September list is insane. There's like 20 games
a lot of stuff
that we were going to talk about. That will live on SheaHatesEverything.com in the show notes. I publish show notes for every episode of the podcast on SheaHatesEverything.com. So if you want to go see like, hey, here are all the coolest games, or at least according to Shea and Kyle, here are all the coolest games coming out this month. I'm going to have those and links to like trailers or information about them. So that can sort of be your repository. In the event that you like that segment, it just takes a lot of time, and it's just not, I can put it on the website, and then also that helps me cross promote from the podcast to the website.
Dude, you're so smart. You're such a smart
I work
boy.
in marketing. Yeah. And then we're still going to do our like monthly game club reveal where we're talking about the thing that we're going to play and kind of keep that process going.
Yeah.
We're still going to do emails, info@sheahateseverything.com. It's actually a bit of kismet. We ended up not getting an email this month, but I think it's like the first time we haven't had an email
in a long time,
since we brought it back. But it works out because we're messing with the format anyway. But we will. I don't want you to think that we're canceling emails. You can still send them in. We'll still read them. Would love to hear some of those.
Yeah.
So that's the agenda, both our new structure and also specifically this episode structure. Let's talk about video games. Let's talk more specifically about Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess.
I'm ready to walk the path with you.
Yeah, I think this game is extremely good. I really have enjoyed it. Yes, I immediately appreciated the art direction.
Yeah.
It's not my vibe. It's got everything is Dark Souls these days, but it's got that sort of like body horror grotesqueness to it.
Right.
It obviously is extremely Asian influence. That's where a lot of this stuff comes from. Like it's actual I don't remember what they call the creatures, but like they're actual like named monsters in Asian culture,
right?
That you're sort of protecting the princess from. But the biggest thing that surprised me was how engaging I found the gameplay loop, because you basically there are two components. There's like it's not even like a town building because it's very rudimentary, but each area that you clear becomes a base, and you can like upgrade that base, and you get resources that you can use to upgrade your characters through the base upgrades.
Right.
And then there's the second component, which is like the combat, which is sort of a mix between simple tower defense and simple third-person action. And it's just like those three components together, I just think it's really fun and addicting. And I have sat down to play this game twice. Both times I went into it like, I'm going to play for like 90 minutes and just check it out. And then I ended up playing for like 3.5 hours the first time. And then I came back to it and was like, let me put a little bit more time into this. I'm like, so it's sort of in the mood. I'll just play it for a little bit and then I'll do something else. And then I ended up playing it like the whole night for like another 3 hours. So I really am enjoying it. I am missing more like deeper systems and combat and gameplay progression, because it feels pretty samey. Like they dole out new types of troops. Yeah. So like you've got an archer, you've got a melee guy. There's a sort of a zone control that slows down enemies as they walk through the zone. So there are options there, but there isn't a ton of depth to where you're placing your different units and sort of how you're navigating the fairly linear maps that you're on. The exception to me has been the bosses. So like every other level or every 3-4 levels, as you get a little farther, there's a specific boss map. The first couple of them are pretty rudimentary. And Kyle, I think you got through the first boss.
Yeah, I just played
right?
the first boss, yeah.
And it's pretty straightforward. You just set your guys and just wail on them for a while. The second one is like a flying boss, and that's where they're introducing the flying enemies. And that one's a little bit more complicated because you gotta, make sure you have a good balance between melee guys and archers. The third boss is where it really took off for me. I think it's the third boss, maybe the fourth. It's like this like centipede creature. And so in the environment, which is like a big circle with the pillar in the middle, there are torch sconces, where your troops can only damage enemies when they're near a lit torch.
Okay.
And the princess that you are protecting, she doesn't move. So you kind of have to balance the spreading your guys around in this big circle, because the centipede creature like is super fast. He moves around the whole map. He will occasionally call in like mobs that will then attack the princess. So you have to utilize like there's a trigger button that you can just say like protect the princess. Like,
yeah, so
abandon the spot.
Issue commands to all of your units at once, kind of like a quick thing.
So it's a balance between having them in specific spots far away from the princess so that the centipede guy doesn't ever get close to her. And so I died twice on that boss, or I should say like the princess died twice and I failed. And so I really had to go back and think strategically about where I'm going to place them, making sure I'm staying on the other side of the map so that when I am drawing aggro, I'm keeping the main enemy away from the princess. And like since then, I've played another couple of levels after that, and it opens up a little bit more variety. However, having played 5-6 hours, I want a little bit more. This is an extremely long game. I think it's like close to like 30-hour game.
Oh.
So maybe over the entire game, by the time you get to the end, maybe there's a ton more complexity.
Sure.
But it's being doled out a little bit more slowly than I would like so far.
Okay. So I
talked a lot. I know you were less into it.
Yeah, and it's not. I think it's really neat. And I think it's grabbing some things from various genres and putting them together in like a really unique way and a unique presentation, which I super appreciate. It's just not the vibe I'm looking for right now. And I was having a hard time, like, just because of how there's this anime series that's like it's been going on for a long time, but there's an anime series it's a series of vignettes, and they're all horror themed, different horror tropes. And there's one of them, I can't remember which one it is. It's been a while since I watched it, but There's one that reminds me a lot of like the art style and stuff in this game, like the style of the enemies and the body horror grotesqueness of it. And like that episode fucked me up for a little while. And so like playing the game, I'm kind of like, I really am unsettled and don't enjoy this.
It is very unsettling.
And so I'm just not in the mood to be challenged in that way at this moment in time. But like usually I would be a big, like if you're marketing a game towards me, tower defense is a pretty safe genre. I like a lot of those games, but something about the art style and I think also kind of the pace in which it was progressing and how the combat's very simple. The tower defense stuff at the beginning doesn't seem like it's very important. Like you can, at the beginning it's easy, so you can kind of put your guys anywhere. Yes. So I wasn't challenged in any way there. Yeah. And I was like, and I can see where it's going. And I'm sure there will be several surprises along the way. And that seems neat, but it's just not what I'm looking for in an experience right now. And so I fell off it after the first boss. Hearing that you have spent more time with it, I would like to go back and play some more because, like, I don't think it's a bad game. I think it's a really interesting, neat package, I'm fully aware that there's more depth in there eventually, I'm sure. But yeah, it just wasn't for me in the moment, and so I didn't spend too much time with it.
Yeah, I like I said, I definitely wish there was a little bit like a faster progression in introducing new systems and, enemy types and all that good stuff. It's like one new enemy type in a level, and then the next level you get one new unit type, and then the next level is a boss with a slightly new mechanic. It's like one new thing every level, which is fine, but spread over dozens of hours, that it starts to feel like pretty slow. So that's been my biggest criticism of it. But I definitely think it's a game that I will go back to another couple of times, and could be a game that like I would champion on like a top 10 list for myself, just because the loop has been addicting in a surprising way, and I also just really appreciate the visual style and the art direction of it. It's like, it's weird to call a game that looks like this a gorgeous game. Yeah. But like the use of color,
is really, really.
It's got that. It's very painterly and a lot of like pastels and stuff. It leans into its culture really well.
They do the Kimetsu no Yaiba Demon Slayer, there it is. They do the Demon Slayer anime thing with the sword, like how the main character in that anime, when he like uses his water technique or whatever, it leaves like this really cool like painted water effect behind the trail of his sword kind of thing. And when your guy in the game is slashing his sword, there's this cool like color visual kind of a psychedelic effect that follows it that reminds me of that.
Yes, and there are, call it like, I don't know what the actual name of it, but call it like a talisman, and you can equip two at a time. Right, and some of them will be like, hey, give this unit type more health, or do X or Y or Z. And there is one that I don't think I've unlocked, but it does something special visually to the sword.
Oh, cool.
So it might be leaning into that aesthetic. There is one that I was using for a while that when you run, it leaves a trail of flowers behind you.
Oh, that's
cool.
So
I had that on for a while. Yeah, just because it looks awesome.
Yeah.
when you're running around. So that part of it's been very, very good.
Also, while you're talking, I looked it up. The anime is Theater of Darkness, was that horror anime that has a bunch of seasons that's all like really fucked up shit. So if you're into that, check that out. But
no, thank you.
There's some messed up stuff in there. I have not watched all of it because I just simply can't sometimes. For some reason, like Japanese horror can be, I will say, a lot more affecting than like our Western horror stuff. Because our Western 100%. Horror is either like a lot of gore or
just like jump scare,
or jump scare like invader related, like home invader or stranger kind of thing. The Japanese
like tension,
yes, yeah. The Japanese horror is like grotesquerie.
It's like fucked up.
Yeah,
stuff.
Just some fucked up shit.
Unsettling.
Yeah, like stuff that doesn't move in a way that it should move. Things like that.
So that's Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess. I recommend checking it out. It's free on Game Pass. go into it with an open mind.
Yeah.
It was like, this is not a game I normally would care about or would have played. I did it because it was free on Game Pass, and I thought it would be an interesting one for us to just give a shot. And I came away very surprised by how much I liked it. So that could happen to you as well.
Yeah.
How about we talk about Star Wars Outlaws?
Okay. I think I can do that for
Outlaws.
you.
Yeah.
So full disclosure, I because I wanted to be able to talk about it in a timely manner on the podcast, I got the whatever gold edition that gave like 3 days early access so I could have some time to play it ahead of the podcast. That's $100 edition of the game, by the way. It comes with all the DLC that's coming, all the story expansions that are coming later.
We thank you for your sacrifice and also kind of judge you.
Yes, I deserve it. It's like the most mid game I've played in a while. It's just a flat 7 out of 10, kind of across the board, except for environments. I think the environments in the game are vibrant. They are interesting. They are like packed full of detail. They look fantastic. That's the best part of the game. I think the music is also fine. Like the combat music, the story beat music, general exploring the world, tones and stuff. I think all of that's pretty solid as well. It's pretty standard Star Wars fare, which is maybe a little reductive for people that spent a bunch of time making it or composing it, but that's how I feel. The game's pretty buggy. Now, I know there will be more patches and stuff, but it really feels like things are about to fly apart at any time. Like just the way K-Vest like slides off of certain elements in the environment. Riding the speeder, I encountered a situation where an NPC speeder bumped me, and so I went up on a railing of a bridge, and then the speeder got stuck, and I flew off of it and took a bunch of damage, and then I couldn't get back on the speeder because there was no button prompt for it, because it was like not technically reachable because it was like up on this railing, and so I had to run like way far away to then be able to call the speeder back to me, hop on it, and keep going.
Great
stuff like that. Like one time I grabbed an enemy from behind to do a stealth kill, and it like slid me 10 feet to the left, almost into line of sight of another NPC, ruining my stealth almost. So that was fun and weird. It needs more time in the oven to make it a polished experience, but that extra time I don't think would fix the problems at its core. And those
like the actual game design.
Correct.
Parts.
Yeah. Those problems are the reputation system, I think, is the biggest problem. It's the neatest idea, but also the biggest problem. So there are a few different factions in the game that are all, like smuggler, villainous factions that you can do favors for, and doing favors for one faction will often decrease reputation for another faction. And you're supposed to be, like you're not supposed to stick with one the whole game. You can if you want, but you're supposed to kind of play them against each other a little bit and take opportunities where they're made available to you. The problem is, like, they place such an importance on the reputation system, probably because it's been such a marketing beat for them, but mechanically, all right, let me set up a scenario. So there is an object that I need, and a faction that I'm allied with has the object. But I can't just, like, pay them for it or ask them for it. The game forces me to steal this thing. So, right off the bat, a little bit of, narrative agency is taken from me in the way in which I have to engage with it. So there are bounding boxes all over the place in terms of that, the scope of what you're able to do. So, I have to go steal this thing. I am allied with them, so I can get to a certain point in their base, no problem. But I'm not, like, fully allied with them. I'm not, like, at the highest point of the meter, so I can't get into their, like, high security area. So I have to sneak through there. Now, if I'm caught while I'm sneaking, I will get kicked out and lose some rep. And the game autosaves when that happens. So you can't, like, do it over again and not lose that rep. And the reason being, they want your reputation to fluctuate a lot. But when you get caught, it's not a small amount of reputation that's taken. It feels slightly disproportionate. It feels like it makes narrative sense, right? Like if you got caught sneaking in an area you're not supposed to be in, that would hurt your reputation. But from like a video game standpoint, the amount that it decreases doesn't feel all that good because of all the work you have to put in to get it higher again.
Because like, is raising your rep, like, is that in smaller increments than the getting caught is a negative increment?
No, but to raise the rep, you have to do a whole mission or a side mission or something to raise it, right?
It's not just like a single mistake.
Right, and like I could make that mistake several times trying to get this item that is maybe narratively important to the main narrative or whatever else, or I need it for a specific upgrade or whatever. I could fail several times and completely destroy my reputation. Now, the weird thing is, if I go in to a faction that I'm not allied with and I trespass, they will shoot at me, and then it becomes a shootout if I'm detected, and I can die and then checkpoint back, and hey, I haven't lost any rep because I died and I checkpointed back in time. So there's this weird thing of like, I would almost prefer to go in areas where I am not allied with them, because if I fail, there's no penalty other than time. If I fail in an area in which I'm allied, there is a penalty that I cannot go back on because it has auto-saved. So there's this weird situation where, like, I got caught again, and before they triggered the thing where they grabbed me, I, like, quit out of the game and went back in and checkpointed it that way. And so, like...
Yeah, like, that sucks.
Yeah, it feels bad. It feels bad.
I get... like you said, I get why they would do that, because they want the rep to matter.
Right.
But by having such a stringent system, it kind of like de-incentivizes you to play the game they want you. Like, to play the game the way they want you to.
Correct. I would be...
Because gamers are fickle.
Yeah.
Like, we want to get it right every time.
Totally.
We don't want a failure state like that.
Totally. And so, like, they are trying to craft a very specific experience, and not everyone is going to be there for that all the time. And also... video games just don't expect that of you, and I don't think this one necessarily has the chops to explain that to the player very well, your average Joe player. I think people are just going to be frustrated by that, and a little confused because it feels inconsistent. It's like, so when am I going to get kicked out, and when am I going to get shot at? That's kind of a question that I'm still asking myself. So, and I like, the shooting is serviceable, doesn't feel great because some of the animations, again with the environment and stuff, are a little wonky. The driving of the speeder, it starts out really bad, but as you get upgrades, like you get upgrades on like the turning radius of your speeder and stuff that make it handle better, so that will get better over time. I don't think the writing is bad, but I also don't think it's great.
I was going to ask.
K-Vest just feels like a boiled down. She just feels boiled down. She doesn't have, like, she has some spunk, I guess, but it all feels very flat. Especially the supporting cast as well also feels pretty flat too. So it's just like I don't feel like I'm really rooting for anyone. I'm not really rooting for Kay, because you're playing all these factions against each other. You're not really rooting for any of them. The rebels are in the game to some capacity. I've had like a run-in with them or whatever as part of a main story thing. So maybe that bears itself out a little more and like gives you someone to root for. But they also kind of like screw you over. So it's also like, well, how much do I want to root for you? Screw me over. It's just a 7 out of 10, man. It just is. It has, I will say this, to its credit, as a Ubisoft game, it has ideas that are unlike. It does not feel like a Ubisoft game.
Yeah, that's really good.
Which, that is a net positive. It is something its own. It is something different. I just think it's. And maybe it's to be expected because they're doing something different, but it feels like it's struggling a bit with its identity, or at least how to communicate the kind of game that it wants to be to the player. And because I think you could do something like this system, but I think the game would need to be tighter. I don't know that you can necessarily. It was maybe too ambitious to set it this type of game in a fully open world where all of these systems can interact, and it's hard to account for things from a development standpoint. Maybe this sort of reputation system could have been more rewarding in like a hub and spoke design kind of world where the bounds are a little bit tighter. The potential for things to go wrong are a little bit more knowable.
Or just like create systems that make the failure state more interesting.
Yes, yeah,
like
that too.
You play as like this like sarcastic smuggler type. Have like some kind of mini game, or like, use your charisma stat to try to talk your way out of getting caught, like that kind of shit.
Yeah,
like,
because there
is
a
system so that it isn't just set or like fail and reset.
Because there is a like, if you get caught, you have a like I forget what they call it, but a like a distracting talk thing that you can do as like a reaction.
Okay,
where Kay like puts her hands up. If you hit a button as someone's catching you, you put your hands up and you talk to them a little bit. It buys you a little bit of time to do something, but that something is never get out of trouble. That something is, I have to stun this guy or kill this guy. Or I'm going to get, arrested and thrown out or shot at or whatever.
Right.
So like they have things in there. It's just like they're so married to the idea of these fail states and having them affect the system that I think they could have done more interesting things, like you said.
Like finding new ways to make consequence meaningful in a game is a great idea.
Yeah.
But that consequence needs to be fun, and that seems like kind of what they missed.
Right.
Is making that system fun.
Yeah, because like if your rep is lower, there's nothing good about that so far that I've seen.
And the idea where it manifests in the missions where like you're making decisions on, do I betray this group or do I stick with them, and that impacting reputation, that's very cool.
That is
like,
cool.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yes, like I had a choice, right? Like I could either get this item from the place that I'm allied with, or I could go and get this item from a place that I am not allied with and shoot my way through or stealth my way through or whatever. I was just like, I guess I'm right here already. I should see how far I can go by sneaking in to do this thing. And so like they are giving me options. They are giving the player options like that. It's just when it gets down to the nitty gritty of the gameplay and the mechanics and how they play out, there's some dysfunction there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said this last podcast. Like, it's definitely a game that I will play if it hits Game Pass or in a year, 18 months when it's like on a deep sale. For me personally, there's too much stuff to play for me to be okay spending $70 on a maximum 7 out of 10 game. Like, there's I've got more stuff. It being Star Wars just isn't enough for me anymore.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree.
And that to me is very disappointing and a huge missed opportunity, because the promise of this game or the idea behind this game, I think, is really strong.
Yeah.
It's just,
I would love to see what the next one of these is, right?
Yeah, we'll see how it sells. I'm very curious, because the reviews have been like pretty not like better than middling. They've been like decently average. Honestly, they've been better than I expected. I expected this to come in more around a 6.
Me too.
Given what I had seen in preview coverage and the jankiness of a lot of it.
Yeah, but it's been more in like the low 8s kind of deal.
Yeah, or I mean, in a lot of 7s, I think it's got like a 76, 77 on OpenCritic. But that's not terrible, right? No. Like, if a game has like a 79 or above, that's pretty strong. So this is close to that.
Right.
So yeah, who knows?
And
I don't know.
I'm going to keep playing it because I want to see if the more time... Because one thing I didn't talk about was like how you level up or upgrade your character, which is like to do these challenges that are assigned to you by these like special NPCs that you find in the world. I think that is a cool idea. Like, to in Call of Duty, how you would have to get like a certain number of kills or a certain number of headshots or whatever to unlock camos and other things or attachments for your weapons. This feels like I need to go do a specific thing to unlock something that has to do with that thing that I've been doing repeatedly. Like unlock a better version of that. So I like that system. I think that is good. That is a good part. And so I do want to see where that goes and how that changes how I feel about maybe the simplicity of the combat and stuff, and see if that opens up new options, or if they ever necessitate, engaging with those options, or if I could just kind of fucking blast my way throughout the whole game. I'm interested to see what kind of, resistance they put up at a certain point. Well, cool. Sounds like we'll hear some more about Outlaws probably next month. Yeah. I need to keep spending more time with it. So, and I will. I spent $100, so I will.
Yeah, you gotta get your money's worth as best you can. Yeah. A game that I have definitely gotten my money's worth has been Helldivers 2.
Yeah.
I several weeks ago reached the point of maxing out everything. Wow. I'm not max level. They extended the level cap to like 150. I think I'm like level 78 or something. But I have every stratagem, every ship upgrade. I have maxed out all of the war bonds, including the newest one that just came out.
My God.
I also I'm maxed out on all of the currencies you use to buy the things.
Jeez.
So now when I play, I'll finish a mission and get nothing. Like I get nothing from it. I'm collecting all of the samples.
That feels bad.
Getting all the medals. It does. It sucks. Like that's so talking a little bit about all of the drama that's happening around Helldivers, and there's a lot of things that should and need to be fixed to get players to continue playing this game, at least at scale. But to me, the biggest thing they could do is incentivize the players that are in my position, because there are a lot of us.
Yeah.
Anyone that is a quote-unquote hardcore Helldivers player is maxed out on all this shit, and now we're just playing it for fun, which is fine. I do have fun. When I sit down to play it once or twice a week, I play like 2 missions, and that's it. But I would play a lot more if I could turn the samples I'm collecting on missions into the real money currency to buy a new cosmetic.
Yeah.
I would play a lot more if you added color variants on weapons and armor that I could be unlocking with the different currencies that I've got.
Yeah.
Like, give me a better reason to get back on the grind.
A cool idea would be like, after each mission, you're able to donate your proceeds from the mission, or your war bonds and your currency and stuff, donate it to the war effort, and it does something like some global community goal kind of thing to unlock another thing if a donation goal is reached or whatever. From like,
if there was a thing to unlock with that, yes.
The
problem is like the big objectives give you the currency that I'm maxed out on already. So like there's no incentive for me other than, just being a big fan of democracy. Don't call your democracy officer. And I'm not complaining. I love fighting for no gain. But yeah, that's like the biggest challenge that I have had with the game. Because I'm playing it far less frequently than I was 2 months ago. The problems with the game are more around Arrowhead, the development studio, like their approach to balance in the game. They just like nerf everything, and it's kind of tedious because there are a lot of weapons and stratagems, which are like the, airstrikes and shit that you call in, special support weapons that you call in, that are terrible. And no one ever uses them because they're useless. And so people in the meta tend to go and gravitate towards specific things because those are the only things that are good. And then Arrowhead sees that and says, oh, everybody's using the same thing. That thing must be overpowered. Let's nerf it. And we're all like, hey, no, we're not using it because it's overpowered. We're using it because everything else is terrible.
Right.
If you buffed the terrible things, we'd use those instead, which did happen a month and a half ago. They did like a big buff update where they buffed a couple of the least used things, and they're totally viable and okay to use now.
Yeah.
But in that process, they also nerfed a bunch of other shit.
Yeah.
And so now when I play, I play this game to have fun. I play on usually level 6, level 7. I'm not trying to, play on the new, like, level 10 difficulty and be insane. Again, because I'm not earning anything, so what's the point?
Right.
And so on level 6, level 7, I can take whatever loadout. I'm good enough at the game. I can always get through with playing with the garbage stuff. So I do that occasionally. But there's no reason to do that other than me forcing myself to. I am definitely underpowered if I'm not using the 5 things that are decent. So that's been the big drama. People being players are kind of at the end of their rope with Arrowhead in a lot of ways. There's been a lot of talk and not a lot of action around their approach to balance. They continue to nerf things even after they say they're going to do it less. They're going to buff things and they really haven't been. So there's a lot of like show me, don't tell me attitude that the community is taking, which I think is totally justified. I think in a lot of cases, as what always happens in gaming, people tend to get kind of toxic and aggressive towards the developers who are just human beings trying to do a job.
That is never okay. It's okay to have criticism, but you have to provide it in a constructive, not just in a constructive way, but also in a constructive forum.
Yeah. Yeah, and there are a bunch of community people, including their chief creative officer, who used to be the CEO. He's really active in the Discord and in the Reddit and all that stuff where people post in. I'm in the Discord channel and I like to read the updates, but I'm not like as active a person in the community because I'm a dad and I play other video games. Like, right. I've got a life outside of Helldivers too, and I'm still having fun with it. That's the biggest part. Like I still have fun when I play. But yeah, I would love to see them change their approach and treat this like a video game that's supposed to be fun and not just a game that is more challenging for the sake of being more challenging.
Yeah, I think they're also part of the ethos is they want to separate themselves from the Starship Trooper, right? Because like Starship Trooper's like over the top action, crazy, whatever, and they're also trying to, cultivate this this more of a hardcore center of like the game is hard. We want the game to be
more
difficult.
Realism.
Sure.
Yeah. They have not found a good balance because that has been their justification for a lot of the nerfs is like, oh, it's not realistic that this thing would work this way. And our answer is, okay, we're playing a video game on another planet against robots.
Right,
like it's just like the realism should not be the priority. The fun should be the priority. And when I call in a missile launcher, I don't want it to ding off an enemy's armor because the damage drop off is so high that at X range I can't do damage anymore. Like that's not fun. That's not an empowerment fantasy. Like I love the idea and the themes of Helldivers where you're just a grunt that has no name that is just instantly replaced, and so we should feel a little underpowered compared to the enemies that we're facing. But that underpowered feeling shouldn't come at the expense of fun. Yeah. And that balance is very hard to toe. All I can say is I think that Arrowhead has not been succeeding in the support of this game. They had it at the beginning, like as a launch product, but as they've continued to tweak, they're going too far in the realism and not far enough in the fun, and I would love to see them get back to the fun.
Sure.
The biggest thing, which it makes me a little bit scared for the longevity of the game, is they've been like gently teasing this third enemy faction for months, and it's continuing to not happen. They have the 60-day roadmap of how they're going to fix all these nerfs and all these complaints that people have, and it just makes me worried that they're prioritizing, quote-unquote, fixing the game, which they should, but that will come at the expense of new content, so much so that even nerfing everybody's old favorites won't be enough because people will be bored of the same enemies and mission types and planets. Yeah. So like
I'm sure they're having a lot of that conversation every day.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I'm still having a great time. I always like to wrap up Helldivers with a wholesome story of a hell dive. And I was in a mission last week or week before with 2 dudes that were in a party together, and I just randomly got hooked up with them. Their names were Poopy Culo, which if you're not a fluent Spanish speaker, culo translates to like butt or ass. So this dude's name was like Poopy Butt, which is fantastic. And his buddy's name was Big Doc Energy, which is also just excellent. And I don't remember which one of them, but one of them had a soundboard for Helldivers.
Oh,
and
awesome.
So he would press the soundboard and it would play the theme song, or it would play like the dude screaming when he's on fire. And it was like some of the most fun I've had playing with randoms since like Modern Warfare 2. It was just absolutely fantastic. I played for I was intending to just log in and do like my daily, because even though I'm earning nothing, I still like to do my daily challenge. Just because I'm a moron and I like checking a box. And so I wasn't gonna hop in, play 2 rounds to do my daily. I ended up playing like 6 rounds with these guys because it was just a really fun time. So
nice.
The community, despite a little bit of toxicity, there's plenty of great, super fun people out there, including Poopy Kulo and Big Doc Energy.
Shout out to Poopy Butt. That's fun.
Yeah. I also played some Dragon's Dogma 2, which was weird, but there was a free trial on PlayStation, and I was like, yeah, okay. I need something else to talk about for the podcast. I'll play some Dragon's Dogma 2. I went in with pretty low expectations, and I had a really great time with it.
It's pretty wacky.
I spent way more time in the character creator than I should have, knowing that I was just playing a brief demo, including the character customizer for the pawn that I wanted to customize too.
Of course.
Which I don't know if it counted towards my 2 hours in that menu, because I feel like I definitely played this game for more than 2 hours. But obviously I did not get super far. I got to the whatever first big town where you interact with a bunch of vendors, and I got my first big mission to collect a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
And I would say I picked like a thief class. The combat I found fairly straightforward. It seemed to me like playing as a mage, there's way more going on. But I also know that magic can be both underpowered and really overwhelming in a game like this, so I wanted to play a little bit more straightforward.
Actually the opposite. You end up, when you're the mage class, you end up just casting like the same 2 spells over and over again.
Interesting.
That's what I was doing, and that's why I got super bored. But you're supposed to like multi-class, because there are things you can take from leveling up each class into playing other classes. So you're supposed to like diversify your portfolio that way. That's not really how I play these kinds of games, so I wasn't really engaging with it in the way in which it was designed to be engaged with, and so I wasn't having the best time.
Yeah. Well, that's disappointing to hear, because I was like, I wonder if I would like this more if I played as a mage. Because I remember, like, I picked a mage class in Dragon Age Inquisition, and that was fun as shit.
Sure.
I really loved playing around with all the different spells. But the combat, because I was kind of like a dual dagger approach,
right.
And it was just really straightforward. And granted, I'm really early in the game, but it was also just extremely easy.
Yeah.
I recruited a bunch of free pawns, so I had a maxed out party of 4, I think it is. You and 3 pawns.
Right.
And I was just blasting through all like the rando enemies.
Oh, for sure, yeah. There are areas of steep difficulty curves, like kind of an old school Bethesda RPG in a lot of ways, where you'll follow a path through
all of a sudden
into in a mountain, and then there's a giant boss somewhere surrounded by super high level difficult flying enemies or whatever, or I'm gonna go check out what's up on this hill. There's an arch there. There's probably something cool there, and a giant rock golem stands up out of the ground, and you end up fighting a rock golem for 45 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
It is a very cool game, because it's full of moments like it is tailor-made to be full of moments like that. Yeah,
right. With the short amount of time I played the game, I just never got to any like cool stuff like that. Right. But I can definitely see it being there. And what I played, I did have a good time with. I think the pawns system is very interesting and cool, just with the idea that like they're learning things as they're being pawns for other players that they're then bringing into your world. So like one of the pawns I picked, her name was Felicia. She was I would call like a white mage. She was like a, whatever they call the like personality traits that make them either like aggressive or more support oriented. She was like a support oriented. So she buffed me a lot in combat. She was like, every 5 seconds, she's like, "Oh, I can show you where this thing is over here. Do you want to go check this out?"
Isn't that awesome? Isn't that so cool?
It is very cool. She was also super annoying though, because she was talking constantly, and neither of my other pawns ever said anything. And so, like, in my head canon was like, everybody found her annoying, but she's so useful that we have to keep her around.
To put up with it.
But yeah, I had a really good time. And then I tried to jump over a rock on a little cliff, and I fell, and I got stuck on a little rock like outcropping and couldn't climb back up, and below me was water, and if you fall into water you just insta die, and then it respawns you where you fell from. And so I just got stuck in a loop of respawning onto that rock outcropping, and there was nothing I could do because I didn't have any way to fast travel. And so then I just stopped playing it, because I didn't want to like try. I couldn't like reload a save or anything, and it was a little trial, so I was just like, okay, I saw what this is doing. This is quite frustrating. I guess I'm done having fun for today.
Yeah, that's a
so
bummer.
It was not a great way to end the experience, but also kind of a freak thing to happen.
Yeah. Maybe you would have a good time with it then. I wasn't quite sure how to recommend it to you, but like if you were interested in what you saw at the beginning, the game is just a lot more of that. And I will also, I don't want to undersell like the main story stuff. There actually is a really cool main story with some interesting missions that have like different kinds of mechanics and different ways in which to engage with the game. Like a little bit of maybe some not great stealth, but a little bit of stealth kind of stuff. And, you know, like attending parties and balls, like looking for certain characters, like a lot of non-combat focused stuff that happens in the large city centers. That stuff's really neat. And there's a lot to explore in the world and see too. Like I've said it before, I keep intending to like go back to it. It's one of those games that once you step away, I can't just reload. I can't reload my save. I have to start over.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just recently re-listened to our 2023 Games That Suck podcast just for fun, and just the conversation around Final Fantasy 16 and my position of really not liking a lot of the aspects of the demo, but there still being something there that makes me want to check it out. Playing Dragon's Dogma 2, I am way more likely to try Dragon's Dogma 2 than I would be to go buy Final Fantasy 16.
Right.
And it's because of the world and the characters and the story I immediately found more compelling than the like dour, pretentious bullshit that was in Final Fantasy 16.
Game of Thrones chasing ass.
Yeah, like game Walmart version of Game of Thrones.
We have Game of Thrones at home. Great value.
The final season of Game of Thrones, basically.
Like House of the Dragon? Yeah.
So yeah, I had a really good time with it, which I was not surprised by, but I was glad of. So who knows? I might go back to it. It is hard to sign up for a game that is that large.
For sure.
That isn't like a sure thing, right? So that part of it's tough, but yeah, you've been playing a bunch of other stuff too, a bunch of recent releases.
Yeah, just some smaller things. So I played Thank Goodness You're Here. I beat that. It was less than 2 hours long, which is like actually totally the right length for it. It was hilarious. The humor hit for me over and over again. Like I talked about it on the podcast before, you play as a little dude and you go around slapping stuff and doing weird shit. There was this hot dog vendor guy who was like rummaging around in the back of his hot dog trailer, and his butt was sticking out the front, and so I jumped in the air and slapped his butt, and he went, ooh, and he turned around and he looked at me, and he had this mad look on his face, and he slammed the shutter closed, and then his shutter was closed from then on in the game. Like, he was mad.
Interesting.
He was mad that I slapped his ass and he wouldn't talk to me.
You missed out on a side quest.
Yeah, I think...
Or maybe you completed a side quest.
I think I completed a side quest. There were a couple of spots, so it recycles the same areas over and over again. You have to go back through places. Things are changing every time you go through and progress the story, but it's recycling the same areas over and over. And there were a couple of spots where I ended up kind of going through the loop a couple times because I couldn't quite figure out what I was supposed to do next. But in like an hour and 50-minute experience, that's not really that big of a deal. But I super enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. I just thought it was hysterical. It is the weirdest. It's just the weirdest shit. It's also like, people who don't know British humor don't realize how raunchy British humor is. This is like so weirdly raunchy in so many strange, upsetting ways. It's Thank Goodness You're Here is a fantastic time. I can't recommend it enough. As just like a good palate. It's unlike anything else. It's a great palate cleanser. It's a singular experience. People, if you like funny shit, you should totally play it.
This is in my must-play pile.
Yes.
Like, everything I've seen about this game is people, like, raving about it, including you. Yeah, this is on my very short list of games that I have to get around to this year.
Yeah. I also played Cat Quest 3. I beat this one in, like, 4.5 hours, but I didn't end up actually doing everything. The balance in this one felt a little off, but it's probably because I wasn't doing everything. It feels like the later game is more tuned towards if you've like chased down every side thing and fought all the enemies and leveled up as much as you possibly can and gotten the best gear you can, et cetera, et cetera.
Is there like a fair amount of grinding in it, or like if you wanted to?
If you want to, yes. There's like this infinity tower that you unlock partway through the game where like you can like just go in and fight waves of enemies and level up that way if you wanted to, or get like some currency for upgrading stuff. I just didn't like the combat's not that good. It's really, really typical, simple fare. It's a lot of dodge rolling and swinging a sword, swapping to a ranged weapon and firing that, whether it's like a wand with a spell or a gun. You have a few hotkeyed abilities or spells that you can assign and swap out and level up. That some of them are like more high damage single target, some are more like crowd control. I did find myself swapping stuff out based on like what boss I was fighting, so there's a little bit of strategy that you can employ there, and like leveling up certain damage type gear against certain bosses and stuff. So there's a little bit of that you can do some rock paper scissors there. All like a very simple level. All like every line in the game has a cat pun in it somewhere, or a pirate pun somewhere. It made me remember all the time I spent playing like Flash games in school on the school computer or at home. It has like a polished one of those kind of energy to it. It's just like what if they took a Flash game and put a little bit of money and time behind it and fleshed stuff out a little bit, but not too much, just enough. And so that's kind of what Cat Quest 3 feels like. I thought it was super fun. It didn't overstay its welcome because I didn't do everything. If I had done everything, I would have kind of been probably pretty bored with it by the end there. But the pace at which I blew through it, I had a good enough time. So I did actually beat it, which is great. Then lastly, I played a little bit of One Button Bosses, which I played the Next Fest demo of previously. This one's fun, but at a certain point, the bosses start using like all of the different boss abilities up to that point at the same time, and it's way too much information for me to process at once. Too much visual information happening because stuff's like overlaid over itself, and it becomes really hard to parse. The paths where it's a broken path where you get to the end and it wraps around to the other side immediately. That shit breaks my brain.
Me too.
I have not played a lot of Pac-Man in my life. That shit just breaks my brain. And so there are imagine that type of a lane for yourself, and then there are like these expanding and contracting geometric shapes that you have to avoid that are also spinning at the same time. There are these little lines that will actually they will shoot off from the boss and target your current trajectory. So you have to be constantly shifting and feathering your trajectory to avoid those things, predicting where you're going to be. There's it's all happening at once. It's fucking wild. It became, I'm just not good enough, man. It became too hard.
I'm with you.
But a very cool idea. I wish there was play it at 0.75 speed setting.
Or even like just give me an easy mode where it just skips all those types of levels.
Yeah. Honestly, I think like just slowing it down to like 80% speed would, I think, fix a lot of it for me. It would give me just enough time to be able to parse all the visual information to find the right path through. I think that would help me a lot, but that I don't believe that's how the game's tuned, so I don't think that's going to happen. But it is a cool game,
right?
And that stuff is there for people who want a challenge, and it's super cheap. So if you're into that idea, give it a shot.
Neat.
Otherwise, I'm not going to talk about them this week or this month, but I've been playing through all the James Bond games, and I'll get into why in a little bit. I've also been watching my buddy play all the old Star Wars games, so I'll be talking about, once I've completed all the Bond games, I'm going to do a tier list on the podcast and talk about all of them.
Oh, boy.
So keep an ear out for that over the next couple of months. Hopefully I'll be able to finish them all, but other than that, that's all I've been doing, man.
If you want to hear a little bit about one of the James Bond's games, you can listen to our 1999 Games That Suck podcast, which published a couple weeks ago. But I also have been playing an old Star Wars game, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Yeah. I finished that this last month. That game has a lot of ups and downs. It's been fun reliving that with your friend who's been playing through all these Star Wars games. He just played through KOTOR,
right?
And so I had finished it like right when he was starting it, and so he was playing it for the first time, and sort of hearing his feedback. It elucidated a lot of the idea around playing things for nostalgia versus playing things to experience it for the first time,
very different,
retroactively.
Yeah.
Is a very different experience. And I totally acknowledge a lot of problems with KOTOR in a lot of ways that it has not aged super well. I think, I talked a lot about this on last month, just about how the story is delivered, and not that the voice acting and writing are bad, but that the delivery is not great because it feels so rushed all the time.
Sure.
And that, unfortunately, is a problem throughout the entirety of the game. That said, I do think the story goes in really interesting places. Spoilers for Knights of the Old Republic. But the big twist around finding out that your character was Darth Revan was like totally mind-shattering. They, playing it knowing the outcome, right? You see some of the foreshadowing that they set up, but it still is such a fun twist. And then, like, what they do with Bastila and her sort of falling to the dark side, I thought is handled in a really interesting way. In my, game and replaying, I had done a lot of, like, flirting with her early on. She's very resistant to that, right, as part of her character, but she sort of admits that she's got complicated feelings for me also. And so I got to, like, have sort of that conversation with her after she's fallen to the dark side and is working with Malik, and bring her back to the light just through conversation and leaning on that relationship and the connection that we had.
Just through your big Doc energy.
Totally, dude. Yeah, I'm going to tap that poopy culo with this big Doc energy. There's your episode title. No. But yeah, I for a game that came out 20 years ago, like, I just think that a lot of that is extremely impressive for how it is able to be delivered in the early 2000s. Like, it was super innovative, to me at least, in how it was done, and really, like, set the foundation for BioWare to, like, take that to the next level with the Mass Effect
100%.
Really,
you can totally
really cool
see,
to go back and revisit it.
Yeah,
that
you
way.
can totally see, kind of the lineage of that, the inception of those ideas. That's really cool to see. Because I watched my buddy play most of it, so I got to see quite a bit of it. That part was super cool.
Yeah, and I think, you're just talking about Star Wars Outlaws, and, like, the thing that game nails being about the atmosphere and, like, the sense of place and the setting. And obviously KOTOR is extremely old. It's pretty ugly by today's standards. The actual environment design is really straightforward and bland, but it still has the vibes that you want from Star Wars in the characters and the settings and the little side stories that happen. One of my favorites was when you go to Korriban and you need to sort of infiltrate the Sith Academy to, like, find one of the star maps that you're searching for as part of, like, the big MacGuffin chase that's always there. And just, like, talking to a bunch of people and going to these, like, Sith like the ancient relics and these temples that they had built, and like the cave systems and stuff, and just sort of the flavor text around a lot of that is just so awesome. And it's one of those things that like it took me back to the original experience of, at the time, already being such a huge Star Wars fan and playing a game that was so advanced in so many ways compared to the ones that have come before, like the Jedi Knights games and things like that were a lot smaller in their scope and also more aligned to the stories that we had already experienced.
Yeah, and so clumsy about how they told the stories too.
Also true, yes. But this game, it's in Star Wars, right? But it's essentially a different universe. Like, it's thousands of years, hundreds of years before the original trilogy.
Yeah.
It's like a totally different, it has Tatooine, it has Korriban on it has Sith and Jedi, and like, the Galactic Republic, but the structure is very different, and the style of the characters is very different. And so it felt like such a fresh take on Star Wars that part of it, I think, super holds up as well.
Yeah.
It's just like the video game parts that don't, like the really straightforward, bland combat and the acting and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the final boss is just horrendous.
That was fucked up,
Malak.
man. The Malak boss fight's fucked up.
I made the mistake of not speccing into the lifesteal power because I wanted to be like as good of a Jedi as
that's
I
what my
could.
buddy
I didn't
did.
want to use any dark side
Yeah,
stuff.
he couldn't do the lifesteal.
It makes that boss fight, you basically have to cheese it.
Yep.
I use the like force speed and I run away and do lightsaber throw over and over and over, and that's all I do.
So what
eventually
what my buddy had to do was like take all his crazy stims and stuff to give all the pluses to his rolls, and then in the start menu every round you can use an item for free.
Yes.
And so you have to pause it, go to the inventory, use a med pack, unpause it, let the round of the attack play out, then pause it, go back, use another med pack, and like do that. He did that for like 20 minutes fighting fucking Malak, and finally.
And it's because like Malak's number one thing is like, one, he does lifesteal against you, but also he just stuns you forever with like his force powers. And unless you've specced up into it enough to like resist the force damage, your character literally can't do anything. You just stand there stunned and then die. Yeah. I died like 4 or 5 times until I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna cheese this shit, and just ran away from him the whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a blast replaying that. I've had such a good time like replaying these games. So the next one I jumped into was Final Fantasy VII. I have played for like a couple hours. I just got to like the first section after you hook up with Eris, where you fall into like the chapel and run away from the bad dudes there. So I'm very early on. I'm not having as much fun with this one. This game, it's extremely hard to look at. I do think, again, to like the time and place, the environment design is so cool.
Yeah, nothing else had looked like that.
Yeah, it looks like a matte painting that you just run around on top of. Like, it's very awesome. However, that makes it really hard to like actually navigate, and you have to rely on the like flashing red beacons for doors that just like completely ruins your immersion. And then also the character models being that like really basic polygonal style. They're just so fugly. And even in combat, they're like in a lot of ways even more ugly because they look so much different than the sprites do out in the world. I just find this game very hard to look at.
Yeah. There's a dude on eBay who sells, hand carves out of wood and hand paints them statues of the Final Fantasy VII characters as they appear in combat and out of combat. Okay. And so like it's like all the harsh angles and stuff.
Cool. That's really cool.
His statues are very expensive, but like it's they look so fucking cool. He has Metal Gear ones as well. I really want a Metal Gear one. It's like $400. So there's no way I'm spending that, but it's like my platonic idea of what, because like they're all these fucking like weirdo otaku dudes who like collect all these figurines of like Sailor Moon people and like looking at lady boobs and from anime characters and stuff. Like weird. This is my platonic idea of what a character figurine should look like. Like the fucking blocky snake from Metal Gear Solid.
PS1 graphics.
Yes, dudes. Fuck yes. Absolutely. Anyways, but yeah. So I have ordered a physical Final Fantasy VII guide, and once that comes in, I'm gonna get back to playing it on my Switch.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I know
you should try
your
and stick
buddy
with
had
it.
also. I will. I definitely will. I know your buddy had also played through Final Fantasy VII for the first time, which it's just funny that we're revisiting these games or like playing
Right.
them at the same time. But he had just turned on all the cheats and like basically like infinite limit breaks and all that stuff.
He was trying to get the story specifically.
Yes, because he wanted to experience the story, which is totally valid. And I might get there just because I'm just not having that much fun. And the purpose of this was to relive the nostalgia and relive the story and see if that can give me more of an appreciation for Rebirth.
Make you less angry.
My intent was to play this and then give Rebirth another shot and see if I can get more into it. I do feel like if I just turn cheat mode on, basically, I feel like that might be taking the easy way out. So I want to try to hold off as much as I can, get a little bit farther. Maybe if I can, get through a couple of bosses or something and figure it out there. But I was not having that great of a time, and I had an evening last night where I was going to play more and just couldn't work up the energy. And so instead, I went ahead and started Fallout New Vegas. And
all right,
love that game. That game rules.
It does.
I
still think it's a little hard to go back to.
Well,
it's better than Fallout 3.
Fallout 3 was extremely hard to go back to. But this one is the shooting is night and day better.
Yeah,
it's
you
still
can
not
actually
amazing.
ADS.
you can actually ADS and aim. It's not awesome, but it is better.
Writing is still great.
Jumping in, I'm like, I'm like digging this vibe more than I was Fallout 3's.
Dude, yeah, I like
this. I might like New Vegas more.
Yes,
than Fallout 3.
think I do too. Just like
a lot of people do.
Something about looking at that brown smudge of a wasteland and the radio do 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 do, like the little fucking cowboy songs playing through my radio. Like something about that vibe hits me like deep in my core. Totally. I get it.
It's got a bunch of great characters and settings. Not that Fallout 3 lacked a sense of place, but New Vegas is a little bit more of a unique. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's got a stronger vibe. I think than Fallout 3 does.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm very excited to continue playing that. I don't want to get too deep into that because then I will fall off of Final Fantasy VII. But I'll continue chipping away at probably both of those at the same time.
Sure. Okay.
But it's fun, man. I'm very happy to be doing this because all of these are games that I love, but games that I have not played essentially since they came out.
Sure.
So I like to revisit games all the time. Like I play Final Fantasy X like every other year, but these are all games, that being Fallout 3, KOTOR, Final Fantasy VII, New Vegas, also like KOTOR 2 is going to be on the list. Games that I haven't played, Final Fantasy VIII, games I haven't played in 20 years. So that part of it's been really cool.
Yeah. Old games, man, they're fucking good.
They were good, yeah. Unfortunately, games are just better now. They just are.
See,
games they're made better. They're more immersive.
I come down on the opposite side of the fence. I think.
Why is it so hard to go back to? It's the quality of life. Yeah, it's not so much better these days.
Sure, but in gaining that, we have lost so much of what made it feel satisfying.
Yes, zero disagreement with that. It's just playing an old game for the first time today illustrates how the gameplay matters more than the world and the story and the characters because it is a video game. You can watch an old movie that holds up the same today as it did in 1948 when it came out. Video games just aren't that way. Video games play worse. Old games play worse than new games. And that's a unique part of the medium.
I see. I think it depends. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it later.
Okay. All right. Well, cool. Let's wrap up our convo around this. Talk a little bit about the Deadpool Wolverine movie.
Sure.
I liked it.
Yeah, me too.
It was a good time.
It was. I liked it.
Oh. So you didn't like it that much?
I liked it better, definitely better than Deadpool 2, because that one wasn't all that great. I recently rewatched Deadpool 1. I do think I like it better than Deadpool 1 as well. But I think that's mostly because I just really like Hugh Jackman.
Of course. Yeah, I would agree. We rewatched both the Deadpool movies prior to seeing this one. And then we also watched Guardians 3 because Kelly hadn't seen it. And I fucking loved that movie.
Yeah.
And so like Guardians 3 in particular was really top of mind because in a lot of ways, Deadpool and Wolverine felt like a send-off in the way that like Guardians 3 did. Right. Obviously, they leave it far more open-ended in the Deadpool Wolverine movie for like if they bring these characters back. But it felt like it was honoring the history of those characters like Guardians 3 did. And in that direct comparison, like Guardians 3 just has so much more heart to it. And just I love those characters so much more. So it kind of isn't a great comparison.
Right.
But compared to the other Deadpool movies, this one I thought was a lot more fun in a weird way because of the like time travel-y, multiverse-y bullshit, which are two tropes that I can't fucking stand.
Yeah, they managed.
I hate time travel. I hate multiverse.
Yeah, they managed to make me not hate all that stuff.
And it only works because it is Deadpool.
Yeah.
And that allows them to break the fourth wall. That allows them to focus on the fun and just do the weird shit. And they can totally get away with it. There are so many cameos in this, and they all work because of the universe of Deadpool. If this was an Avengers movie that was more fun, but it was still the same Avengers characters that had all these cameos and shit, that would probably feel kind of lame. But because it's Deadpool and he's being lame on purpose, it totally worked for me.
Yeah. There's one cameo that, like, in a million... If you had asked me to write down my top 1,000 cameos, I would imagine this character and franchise would not have been on the list. Mostly because I guess I didn't realize it was a Marvel property. But, yeah, that was a very pleasant surprise.
There's a new they're working on
there's a great reason
movie.
why it was that property as a cameo too. I love that.
Yes,
it's so fun.
But yeah, I thought it was a really good time. It has not reinvigorated my interest in Marvel.
No.
I didn't expect it to. But
this felt like my closing of the door on the Marvel stuff for me.
This was my third closing of the door.
Sure,
No, fourth. Endgame was a closing of the door, and then Spider-Man 3, No Way Home was a closing of the door, and then Guardians 3 was a closing of the door, and now Deadpool is a closing of the door. So clearly I'm still a sucker.
Sure.
Like, I'll keep coming back for the things that I care about,
right.
But the things that I care about have been wrapping up, so maybe there isn't
that list is pretty short now.
Yeah. But yeah, fun stuff. We've been playing a lot, and always fun to randomly have a Marvel movie to talk about.
Yeah.
Marvel adjacent, let's be real.
Sure.
So let's chat about our new segment, Show and Tell.
Yeah.
It's a catchy name, but it doesn't really make sense because it's a podcast, not a webinar. So there's no showing that's happening. But yeah, for now it's called Show and Tell. So Kyle, we talked at the top about, your collecting addiction. I think we can call it. This is a safe space.
Compulsion.
Part of getting over the problem is admitting that there's a problem. What have you been doing lately with your money?
Yeah, so I mentioned I'm going back and playing all the James Bond games with my buddy. He's watching and guiding me through occasionally, and I'm doing the reverse for him with the Star Wars games. And we're going to continue on through various properties that we've either never played or just want to revisit or whatever. And while playing the James Bond games, I realized, I'm really enjoying playing these old games, and I never go back and play old games because my collection has just been decimated over time. Because for a long time, I didn't have any money. So in order to play new games, I would have to trade in my old stuff. And also I have a very small house, so I don't have a lot of space. So there was also like that aspect of like, I just can't afford to keep stuff around. But I've gotten much better about space management and kind of paring down the things that I don't care about, getting rid of the pop figures and other stuff. And just being a little more smart with my space. and I have a little more room now. Not a lot of room, not enough room for what I wanted to, but I have a little bit more room now. And I realized I'm really enjoying playing these games, but there's also, like, I've been emulating the James Bond games. I was like, man, it would just...
Legally.
Yes. Legally emulating them because I now own copies of all of them. I realized, you know, I want to own these games, and I, you know, like, the Nintendo keeps closing storefronts. Like, you can't get DS or 3DS games anymore. Those storefronts are gone. The Wii storefront is gone. And there's also, I'm the kind of person who cares about crafting an entire experience, not just, I don't want to just play the games. I want to relive in as much totality as I can the experience of nostalgia, of playing them on the real hardware with real discs. I also care a lot about games preservation, and so, like, knowing that I will be a good steward of the things that I collect that are important to me, I think that matters, especially with, like, systems like the DS and the PSP. Like, those cases never stay around because people just throw them into the little binder full of carts or whatever. Like, getting complete in box versions, original versions, not greatest hits versions of games, that matters to me. I love playing games with guides, so, like, finding the guides for specific games that I want. I'm into that now as well.
I'm using a digital guide for Final Fantasy VII because I don't have a print guide and I don't want to buy one, and I hate it.
It sucks.
I want a paper guide.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to spend $30 on a Final Fantasy VII guide personally.
Yeah,
I'll leave that up to you.
So differently than you, I will spend $30 on a paper Final Fantasy VII guide, which actually should be here. I think this coming Wednesday or earlier. But anyways, I have a list of things here. But so I wanted to set it up. I wanted to talk about kind of what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. And I do also have this pathology of, it's a dangerous pathology of, once I start collecting a thing, the bounds of what I am collecting tends to expand and expand and expand out of control. And so I've been talking to my partner Kara, been talking to my buddy about, you know, how to rescope some of the bounds of that and make it a little more responsible. And also, like, you know, I'm not going to buy any more of this stuff for the rest of the year. My list is now a Christmas list, and I'll let maybe some other folks get me a couple things, and then maybe I can resume looking for things in the new year. You know, but because spending got a little out of control, as I'm going to outline here shortly. These are all things I care about. Or my partner, because I felt guilty that I was doing this and spending all this money. So I was like, surely there are, you know, Kara's been in a bit of a gaming rut recently. They've not been really enjoying the things that they're playing, not sure what to play, been bored. If I get Kara in on it and, like, find out what game series that they think are really important to them, then I don't have to feel so selfish doing this, because it's a thing we can go do together. You know, we can play these old games together. And so that was also part of the mental gymnastics I went through to start buying some of this stuff. All of which is true, though. Like, Kara and I are always looking for things to do together wherein our interests align, and we do both like games and we like spending time together. And so some of these games, I mean, you can't really play them together, but play them separately in the same space at the same time. That hanging out, doing different things in the same space is a love language of mine. That's my quality time. I think you have a similar quality time love language requirement of just, like, even if you're doing separate things, just being in the same space fulfills part of that for you.
That's why I asked Kelly to do her iPad shit when I'm watching football.
Right.
I like her being on the couch next to me.
Totally. So very similar in that regard. So I got Kara in on it, and I've added Kara's games to my list of stuff. We found some stuff for them. And they're also, like, I would like to play some of these as well. I'm not wholly disinterested in this stuff, so it's kind of for both of us. But it's also a chance, like, Kara and I can go out and, like, go around to all the local games shops and, like, look at stuff. And, like, it's exciting if we find something that we need, or on the list of things that we want, I should say. It's exciting when we find a thing, and then we can look at the prices. Is it priced reasonably? Is it in pretty good shape? Is it worth it? Okay, yeah or no. Move on. Like, that process is a fun thing for us to be able to go do together. And so, like, that's also part of it. It's not just a collecting of things. There's a world of experiences that I'm trying to, manufacture and bring into the world that come part and parcel with why I'm collecting it. So all of that to say as a justification so people don't judge me for what I'm about to share. Here's the sum total of things that I've bought so far, and there's so much more to go. Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass on DS, both of those games. All of this stuff is, pretty much all of this is complete in box, by the way. And, like, Black Label, not greatest hits, that kind of stuff. Yoshi's Island on DS was something Kara was interested in. Kara got My Sims Kingdom on DS, which is funny because they just announced a My Sims and My Sims Kingdom remastered bundle coming to Switch this year. So Kara's very excited for that. Kara's never played the Professor Layton games, so we picked up Professor Layton in the Curious Village, the first one, on DS. Those games are extremely hard to find. Anytime they're for sale anywhere, they get just absolutely gobbled up. So we did get that one from eBay. Animal Crossing Wild World for the DS, because we didn't have that one. While we were out and about, we found a sealed copy of Animal Crossing City Folk for the Wii, which was really cool. I found that when I was out by myself. I got it as a surprise for Kara. They love it. But Kara's like, I don't want to open this. And I was like, I kind of don't want you to open this either. So we also got an already opened copy that they can play.
Well, that way it's not a purchase, it's an investment.
Oh, totally, yes.
The sealed copy will more than pay for the unsealed copy someday.
It will, actually, yes, that is true. But not that we would even get rid of it. But yeah, that is true.
I did mean it, what I said, but I was also rolling my eyes as I said it, just to be clear.
No, these are the things we tell ourselves to make us feel better about the choices we've made. Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story on the DS. Mario and Luigi Dream Team, Mario and Luigi Paper Jam, both on 3DS. I am currently on a bidding thing for Mario and Luigi Partners in Time on the DS, which is, I guess, really hard to find because it goes for a lot. And I found a reasonable price bidding thing, so hopefully I don't lose. Because I have a max bid on it, so if it goes above it, I'm not going any higher than what I put. Patapon and Popo LaCroix for the PSP. I don't even own a PSP.
I was just going to ask if you have a PSP.
I am on the lookout for a working PSP. I have a Vita.
So that you can play these games that you just bought. Well, love that.
And there are
one purchase begets another.
Yeah, there are so many more PSP games I want to get. I like the God of War ones, the Metal Gear Solid ones, the Killzone. There's a bunch of them that I want.
There's some great Kingdom Hearts PSP games.
That's not true. I got
There are some Kingdom Hearts PSP
games. They exist.
Statement of fact.
Yes. I have Mass Effect 3 already, so I got 1 and 2 on the 360, so I could have all 3 of them. I decided that my favorite game of all time, Resident Evil 4, it would be funny and satisfying to own every physical release of it. So I now do, which is...
Surprised it took you this long.
Yeah, I know. Which is, I have the Chainsaw controller as well for the GameCube. So I have the GameCube version, the PS2 version, the Wii version, and the only other physical releases are Xbox One and PlayStation 4. And so I have those now as well. So I have all the RE4s. I guess I don't have a physical copy of the remake. I'll have to fucking get that at some point, damn it.
It's a different game.
It's a shit-ass game is what it is. I have Resident Evil.
I told you I just relisted the games that suck. We don't need to revisit this.
Speaking of shit-ass games, I'm collecting all the Resident Evils, by the way. I have Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City on the PS3, And what is actually exciting, I have Resident Evil Survivor in fantastic shape for the original PlayStation. That is a light gun game. And I have a PS1 light gun. I still have our purple light gun. So you bet your ass I'm going to play it on my CRT in my office. I have Resident Evil 3 Nemesis for the PlayStation 1. I have not found 1 and 2 yet. I have Resident Evil Darkside Chronicles for the Wii I picked up. There are so many more Resident Evils that I need.
Yes.
I got, important for you and I, a copy of Rugrats Search for Reptar on the original PlayStation. And Rugrats in Paris, the movie, the game, for the original PlayStation. I want all the Rugrats games. I want the PlayStation Rugrats games.
Right.
I got Final Fantasy Tactics on PlayStation, Final Fantasy Origins, which is 1 and 2 on PlayStation, Final Fantasy Anthology, which is 5 and 6 on PlayStation, Final Fantasy Chronicles, which is a port of 4, and Chrono Trigger on the PlayStation. That is, I think that one's only available in Greatest Hits. That's the one that I got. I got a terrific shape copy of Final Fantasy IX. It's like basically near mint. It's incredible. Final Fantasy IX for the PlayStation 1. I got a copy of Final Fantasy X, 10-2, 12, all for PS2. I got Final Fantasy 13 for PS3. Need the other two 13s. I got Tactics Advance 2 on the DS and Crystal Chronicles Ring of Fates on the DS. I have a lot of very fond memories playing those Crystal Chronicles DS games. I got Kingdom Hearts 2 on the PS2.
Wait. Where are you at on the guides for Final Fantasy?
I will.
Do you have?
I will talk about that at the end of the section.
Okay.
I have a guide section. I
Mail
own some of them.
me Final Fantasy VII.
No. I can mail you a copy of the
back.
Final Fantasy X guide that you already have because you have our copy.
I already have it.
Yeah, you have our copy. I now have 2 copies of that. Because I bought one and then I bought a lot of guides that also came with one. Anyways, Kingdom Hearts on PS2, Star Ocean Till the End of Time on PS2 because I have the guide for that, and I've always meant to go back to it because I was very perplexed by it at the time, but I want to give it a shot. All 3 of the Lord of the Rings games on PS2 because fuck yeah.
Wasn't there a Hobbit game on PS2 also?
There was.
It was just atrocious.
There was. I'm debating getting it.
It's Fellowship of the Ring was also bad, wasn't it?
It is. But I have a bone to pick with Fellowship of the Ring. We rented it from Hollywood Video. I couldn't get past the ring wraiths at the beginning of the game and had to keep restarting it, and I couldn't beat them. So
now that you're older and wiser.
Yes, I'm a hashtag gamer now, and I'm going to fucking get past those ring wraiths in Fellowship of the Ring. It's important to me. So I got those. I got a really nice looking copy of Dino Crisis on the PlayStation, which I've never played. I'm really excited to play Dino Crisis. Original Dead Space on PS3. I don't have any of the Dead Spaces physically anymore, which is crazy because it's one of my favorite franchises of all time. So I finally have Dead Space 1 on PS3 again. Need to get the other 2.
Well, don't get Dead Space 2. You won't be able to play online.
Oh no!
You'll have to buy that online add-on.
Right?
Wasn't that Dead Space 2 or was that 3?
3. No, 2. 2.
I think it was 2. That was the
2 had the multiplayer. God of War 3 on PS3, BioShock Infinite PS3, Metal Gear Solid 5 on PS4. I still need the Ground Zeroes disc.
That doesn't count. Metal Gear Solid 5 doesn't count as I'm collecting video games.
Yeah,
thing.
I want all the Metal Gears.
Yeah, but that game didn't come out that long ago.
So I want the whole thing. I want all of them.
Now you're just listing video games you bought. There isn't a nostalgia or
what? I am collecting all the Metal Gears.
All right.
You don't get to tell me what my collecting is or isn't. It feels like we've
turned a corner into me being like, oh yeah, I bought fucking what was that shitty? I bought Warhawk for PS4 just so that I would have Warhawk.
Well, that's actually PS3 because it had the Axis controls, and I should get that because that's a shit ass game that's funny to own.
Hugely shit ass game.
I also,
what was the other one? I was trying to think of it was a launch game where you flew a dragon.
Shit. What was that one?
That game was hot garbage.
Yeah, that game was ass.
Legion, but that's a different game.
No,
the Legion. What's the Legion video game? Because that game was actually kind of dope. It wasn't just called Legion; it was called something else. I'm on a whole other path now.
Layer was
Layer. Thank you. Okay, I was close.
That is pretty close. You're right. I should get all the launch PS3 games. That'd be a fun collection. I have now own all of the 007 games, and that is 007 GoldenEye on the N64. Well, sorry, there are some that were before the N64. I'm collecting N64 on, which is like New Era Bond on. Brosnan on. GoldenEye 007 on N64, which I already had. And I bought World Is Not Enough and Tomorrow Never Dies and 007 Racing on PlayStation 1. Agent Under Fire, Nightfire, Everything or Nothing, Rogue Agent, and From Russia with Love on PS2. And Quantum of Solace, GoldenEye Reloaded, Bloodstone, and Legends for PS3. GoldenEye Reloaded has a wrinkle, because that game you don't have to play with the PlayStation Move. However, you can play it with the PlayStation Move. So you bet your fucking ass I bought the Move camera, a wand and a nav controller, and the sharpshooter attachment so I can play it with the sharpshooter Move controller, because I also got Killzones 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to play Killzone 3 with the Move controller as well, because I hate myself. So I have all those. And now guides. Right, guides. I have guides for Final Fantasy Origins, Chronicles, the DS version of 4, which I bought on an oopsie, because I thought it was a regular version of 4. And then I went ahead and just got So I got the Chronicles guide, which has that and Chrono Trigger. Okay. Anthology 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 2, 12, and Crystal Chronicles Ring of Fates. Those are the guides I
love it. I have Final Fantasy 10, 10, 2, 12, and 13.
I do own 13.
So you don't have 13.
Already.
Oh, you do.
Yes, I have a guide for that already.
That's a lot of shit.
It is. I bought a tiny little bookshelf just for my game guides, and I love it so much. It makes me so happy. It's getting full already. So I might...
Yeah, I only have like 5, so I just have them in a little binder underneath my TV.
Yeah, I need to slow down. So I still have our original black and blue, like, Gore-Tex binder that has the...
Pokemon?
Yeah, Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow guide and the Gold, Silver guide. I still have those, and they're all in the little page protector sleeves with the 3-ring binder thing.
Because the book actually
fell apart. It disintegrated. Yeah, because we used it so much.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I do still have, because that is still like that is my gold standard of game guide, is that original 100%. Red, blue, yellow guide. It's incredible.
Yes.
I don't think they've ever made a better video game guide. But I'll let you know if I find one, because I'm going to be collecting more.
Of the guides I've used, that has been my all-time favorite. Absolutely. Like, it tells you the Pokemon of every single trainer in that
every
game.
Trainer and every version.
And every version. Yep.
And the percentages based on the version in each area. That guide's incredible, man.
It's great.
So that's what I have bought. And before you judge me, it's too late. You already have. Before you judge me, think back to what I said when I was hedging this ahead of time, where it's like, it's not just collecting. I care about the preservation of the games. I want them in good condition so I can keep them in good condition. I want to actually play these on real hardware. I'm looking for a very specific experience. It's also a thing that I get to share with my partner and my friends. It's like, this is like the most excited I have been about video games in years. And I can't wait to like dive into some of these games that I haven't played before, and also just like to revisit all of them, and like just to know, because games have kind of been failing me over the past couple of years. Just like, there hasn't been that much that I'm all that excited or interested about. Things have not hit in the same way, and I feel like I need to get back to an era where it was like the most fulfilling, craziest thing for me was the new game that I was playing.
Right.
I need to recapture some of that energy just for my own sanity, to like be able to go through life, and like in a way that when I would look up at my shelves and see all the pop figures, and it like filled me with fucking dread, and depression and like anxiety and like a little bit of anger. Now
at yourself and at everyone else.
Oh, for sure. And like the manufacturing industry, everything. Now I look up and I see like rows of Final Fantasy, Resident Evil, Metal Gear Solid, James Bond. Like I see all those things on the shelf. I'm like, fuck yeah, man. Like these are games that I give a shit about. These are worlds that I care about. These are like places in which I crave to inhabit, to like take me away to different places. I get the same feeling looking at this shelf now that I do looking at my bookshelves with all of my fantasy and sci-fi novels that I love and have a great affinity for. And that matters a lot to me. And I'm very fortunate in that I have some disposable income in which to like be able to do that, because I certainly did not for a very long time. And I was actively robbing myself of that by selling away my collection in the past. And
if I had the systems to play those games, I would be interested in doing that also.
Sure.
Like I wouldn't go down as many rabbit holes as you,
of course not.
Like the games that I love that I own digitally, but again, it's not the same, right? Like I would love to still have my Steelbook Final Fantasy 12 edition.
Right.
Like I loved that thing, and I don't. I have the Zodiac Age on PS4 that I bought, and then I think it was free on something, so I've got a downloaded version too. Yeah. But like it's not the same. I would love to have because I would love to have a bookshelf in my office where I have all my games. I have a bookshelf with all my Star Wars books, but I would also love one with all my video games.
Right.
Instead, I just have a fuck ton of PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 games, and a couple. Like I have KOTOR on disc because I bought it years ago for whatever stupid reason. I have the Xbox version of KOTOR. But like I have very few old games in that way, and it would just be cool to have them, to look at them, because it would bring me joy the way that it does you.
Even just looking at them brings me joy, but also like to know that, because I can play them. I do have the systems apart from the PSP I need to find, but like I can play these games, and that is really exciting.
Yeah, and obviously it's fun to rag on you because that's what we do. But
of course,
I think that to get real about it for a second, it's a hobby and a passion. And even taking out the game preservation aspect, even if it was just a nostalgia and collection, that's totally valid. It's your money. You can spend it on what you want. Like it's the idea that, because a lot of people that would listen to this that are not gamers, but a lot of people that would listen to this and be like, oh, it's so dumb. Like, why doesn't he spend his money on something like a more meaningful hobby? And it's like, what's the fucking difference?
Right.
Like if you were spending all this money and time rebuilding an old car, people would be like, oh, wow, what a cool hobby. But because it's video game related, they like look down on that. And I'm primarily talking to specific generations with that comment. And also people in our generation that might look down on it too, that just don't understand. But like we grew up playing video games. It's been one of our favorite things our entire lives. Yeah. We're getting old also. So there's a ton of nostalgia attached to this. And like, it's awesome that you not are lucky to have the disposable income because you earned it. You're privileged to have the disposable income.
Privileged, yes.
That you're spending it on something that you're passionate about, that's meaningful to you, and that brings you joy. What the fuck's wrong with that?
Right.
So
yeah,
I'm with you.
And like, it also feels good to not be buying the shit from GameStop. Like, I'm buying it from like people. You know, like eBay sellers, yes, but like people who are running, like these eBay sellers are mostly like, you know, people who are getting rid of their collection and trying to like find a good home for it, or like they need the money or whatever, or it's like a mom and pop game shop that is also supplementing their store-based income with a digital storefront through eBay or whatever. And then like actually going to those, you know, storefronts and buying games from them, like supporting that community matters a lot to me, because those are places I really don't want to go away, and they were in danger of going away for a long time, and probably still are as physical media starts to dissipate. I mean, there will always be new things that people are looking to, new things that people are looking to collect, but like, you know, these are. And it's also like you can go into those places and talk to people, and they know shit about it because they're passionate about it.
They're passionate.
And there's a community around that I feel like I'm kind of on the fringes of, that I might start worming my way into, which is another really valuable thing for me as well. But yeah,
I mean, it's not dissimilar to like me trying to. I'm going through and buying all these Star Wars books,
right?
And like I'm almost exclusively getting them from an online retail site called Abe's Books. That's like predominantly mom and pop bookstores and like libraries and places like that. So like I'm buying original prints that came out in 1997. Some of them have like writing in the margins.
Oh, that's cool.
They have like a lot, like, you know, I try to avoid buying ones that are like heavily used because I don't want them coming with ripped pages and stuff.
Yeah.
But a lot of them have like old library tags and the little like Dewey Decimal System stickers on the side
That's
of
cool.
it. And like one of them, it wasn't written all throughout it, but on the intro cover, like on the first page of the book, it had clearly been a gift, and there was a little note of like, "Hey, Eleanor, happy birthday! Like, hope you enjoy." And that's so cool. Like, I get to experience a little bit of nostalgia from someone else's life, and that part of it's just really awesome.
Yeah.
And so
because like the book has
a
story, but the book itself is also a story.
Bars.
Yeah.
Deep, bro.
And the games are the same way. Like even the ones that are in really nice condition, like they're not perfect by any means. Like I'm not buying graded copies because I don't really care about that. But like there's a story that goes along with each of these games that has nothing to do with the story on the disc or in the manual or in the game guide. Like there are, you know, the signs of wear are signs of like kind of in a way like signs of love and use, and like it feels good to give those things new life through my passion for them, and a similar way that it does for you with the books. So yeah,
I you know, we joke about it, but that's a super fun thing to do, and glad it brings you joy. You are a weirdo.
Yes, I'm also a hat guy now. I don't know if you know this. I'm a hat guy now. Well, I've sent you pictures, but I used to be a baseball cap guy, and that was the only kind of hat I would wear. I got a fedora and a flat cap now, and I'm wearing that flat cap a lot. I feel pretty good about it.
What is a flat cap?
Like a press boy cap, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
The kind that like a Kangol, but you wear it the right way.
Right. Exactly. A not Samuel L. Jackson Kangol.
Correct.
An opposite of Samuel L. Jackson Kangol.
Yeah.
Love it. Just getting cooler by the day.
That's right. Collecting old games and wearing grandpa hats. That's me.
Most importantly, from that entire segment, I have to close the loop because I brought up a game called Legion, and I couldn't get that out of my head.
Oh, yeah?
The game I was referencing is Chaos Legion, which is an old, like, Devil May Cry-like hack-and-slash game from the PS2 that I was a big fan of. It was super emo and, like, goth in a Devil May Cry way. The game was super fun. So
do you have a PS2?
No.
Man.
I have a PS3.
Yeah, so Chaos Legion on eBay, it's like $25, man. This game, I'm
not buying that.
This game, wow, this guy's hair, wow,
it was very dumb,
incredible.
It was a good time.
I'm gonna add this to my list because I want to be able to play it and talk to you about it.
I was just thinking, like, as you were walking through all your games, when we come to visit and like Thanksgiving or whenever we come up this year, might have to tell Mom, like, hey, sorry, we're not staying with you. Kyle and Kara need to get their guest room set up because I want to just like hang out for a day. No, we can't literally do that. We have 2 small children. Also, we can't physically fit into your home. You don't have the space for us,
dude.
Which is really depressing.
Last weekend we had Kara's parents staying with us and their 3 dogs. So it was 4 humans and 4 dogs, and we made it work. So
yeah, but the dogs can sleep on the floor in the living room.
That's also true.
That's not a criticism of you. It's more of a this is the burden that I carry with me.
Yeah, I don't think Penny and Max would be into sleeping on the couch.
Yeah, I have 2 additional small humans that I have to think about. I can't just be like, hey, Kelly, do you want to stay with Mom and the kids? And then I'll just stay with Kyle and Kara? That sounds fun for you, right?
Well, either way,
65 on Metacritic.
You know, so that's not bad.
Not highly regarded, but I enjoyed it.
Well, look, it's all about you and what you value in your nostalgia.
it's always all about me. Which leads us to Hate of the Week.
Nice job.
Hate of the Week.
All right. So this has been relevant for a while, but it's been very top of mind as it pertains to Star Wars Outlaws and the discourse around that game. And that is the idea of hashtag gamers hating on games for like the wrong fucking reasons. And this isn't you're hating a good game for petty or arbitrary or culture war reasons, and more like here's a game that there are many valid criticisms to be levied against it, but instead you're focused on bullshit. And not to get political, but this reminds me of the election 4 years ago when a particular candidate had a lot of problems going against him and a lot of things people didn't like about this guy. And a lot of people like to focus on like, oh, he peed his pants allegedly. Or, right. His toupee is dumb. And I'm like, yeah, sure. But also, all these other terrible real things are the things that we should be talking about. Yeah, and that's how I feel about the discourse around Star Wars Outlaws.
Yeah, it clutters the discussion in a way that's not constructive.
And yeah, in a lot of ways, like it partially like invalidates the legitimate criticism because you get looped in with these like culture war morons.
Right.
And so specifically with Star Wars Outlaws, there's been a ton of criticism around DEI. And like, look, anyone who fucking listen to this podcast knows where Kyle and I stand on this shit. Anyone listening to this podcast is on our side and the right side of history, because if you were not, you wouldn't be able to stand us, because people that think that there's a vast conspiracy around wokeism in video games is completely fucking brain dead, and you have zero value in society. So please don't listen to this podcast. So none of you are. But that's been a thing with Star Wars Outlaws. Like, oh, the main character's ugly. It's woke because they had to make the main character ugly because you're not allowed to make hot female characters anymore. This is a real thing people believe and say.
Also, she's not ugly.
No, she isn't.
She looks like a normal human being.
She looks like a normal human being. And like it's because they compare it to fucking Stellar Blade.
Right.
Like every female character should look like Eve in Stellar Blade, or like the characters in the First Descendant that we talked about.
Right.
And you're not allowed to look normal. If you're a dude, it's fine. Yeah, it's totally Marcus Phoenix, like big, gruff, ugly, hairy, smelly, sweaty dude. That's what dudes are supposed to be like. Women are supposed to be objects that I want to have sex with and look up CG porn of online. Like that's the only purpose of female characters in video games. And so that's been the discussion, is this like DEI initiative that the woke conspiracy mob is forcing on all of these games. They had to make her a female character. They had to make her a girl boss or a boss bitch or whatever. And they had to make her ugly because she's not allowed to be attractive. Meanwhile, there's a ton of criticism to be levied at Ubisoft for the types of games that they make and farm out, for the structures that they put around pre-orders and special editions that Kyle fell like victim to because he wanted to play it early.
Right.
Like the criticisms around the poor implementations of particular ideas in the game that Kyle, you were talking about. And it just, like you said, it muddies the water of the discourse because a huge part, it's not a huge part, a very small but very vocal, because they're losers and they have nothing else going on in their lives, vocal minority just yelling about this bullshit. So it makes it really hard for like the rest of us normies to have meaningful conversations about game design and like emotional impact and storytelling and game structure and design systems and all that like shit. Like the reason we play fucking video games.
Right.
Which we do not play video games to stare at hot women with boobs. Like, there's a bunch of places that you can do that. I play video games to, like, fucking play a game.
Yeah.
That's what I want to talk about and care about.
Yeah. I want to be transported really and not into a pair of boobs.
Yes. And look, it isn't always like the culture war stuff. That's more prevalent now because people have lost their minds in the post-COVID world, and it's terrifying.
Yeah.
But like this existed previously. Like the big example I can think of is Last of Us Part 2. Like prior to that game coming out, when it leaked this around the story, and just like also, unfortunately, the design of Abby and people having a negative response to that. But it was really about like, you're killing the main character, so fuck this game. Like no context. It doesn't matter how they set it up or what they do. Whereas me, like, I didn't like that they did that either, but it wasn't a gut reaction. It was after playing the game and like thinking about it from a storytelling structure, what I would want out of a sequel, and having what I believed to be legitimate criticisms that no one has to agree with. No one has to agree with my criticisms, but they're not based in this like vitriolic condescension and judgment of a product that I haven't fucking played yet. And it's just so frustrating. And I've talked about this ad nauseum on this podcast, but this type of like mentality has soured me so much on talking about video games with people. And it's such a bummer. Like there are so few places that feel safe to meaningfully talk about video games. There's a lot of YouTubers I like where I can't look at the comments.
Right.
Because even if I agree with what the person is saying, their community is toxic as fuck. There's a dude that I really like, G-Man, who has got a YouTube channel. He does reviews and stuff. He's Australian. Or maybe he's from New Zealand. I don't know. He's from down under, but he does a lot of like boomer shooter stuff. He does a lot of like retro game retrospectives, and he's just got like a fun personality and attitude. And he's very easy to watch, and his gameplay is always solid. He did a preview coverage of Star Wars Outlaws, and he was like, I think the title of the video is like Star Wars Outlaws might actually not be that bad. And like that video has tens of thousands of downvotes. The comment section is just filled with people calling him a shill, saying that he's been bought out by Ubisoft. Like, oh, congrats on the trip to Disney World. Like, all just the most
all they did
basic,
was read the
shit.
title.
And also, they're unwilling to acknowledge that there might be some fun in a game like this.
Yeah, it is
like,
easier to just write it off and follow the crowd.
Because that's the content, because the like rage sells, hate sells. And there are so many YouTubers out there, not just YouTube, on any social channel that you're going to engage with, that all they do is hop onto the next culture war grift.
Right.
Because that's what people will get passionate about.
Right.
It's way easier to talk about the things you don't like and why than it is to talk about the things you do like and why. And I say that full of irony on a podcast called Shea Hates Everything. I completely acknowledge that. But the idea behind
we do spend more of the podcast talking about things that we do like, I think.
I think that's probably true. And like my idea when I created my website was obviously leaning into the sort of cynicism that I bring and the snark that I bring, but it was because I believe that I did have some intelligent things to say, even if it is in the negative sense. And I'm just not like jumping on a bandwagon and talking about things at a surface level.
Right.
That's what is frustrating. Like, I have no problems with anyone coming to me about fucking BioShock and telling me about the things about BioShock that they think don't work, even though it's my favorite game of all time. I'll tell you a million things about BioShock that I don't think work the way they should. But if you come to me and say, like, BioShock is bad because how come there aren't little boys? Like, how come it's just little girls that are in the game? Little sisters. It's just woke ideology. Like you're a jackass. And that's the difference, right? Like,
where are the little brothers at?
Yeah, dude. Oh, yeah, more male erasure in video games. Fucking feminism in video games with all the little sisters.
I'm surprised you weren't fighting big mommies instead.
Oh, that's in the sequel.
Oh, I like pretending to be those guys for like 5 seconds. That's fun.
It's exceedingly frustrating, not just because I feel like it legitimately does hurt like progress in the industry.
Yeah.
Because you see games come out like Wukong that in their like documentation for streamers and reviewers, not like journalists, but like YouTubers, they were like, hey, no feminist propaganda.
Right.
And then people see that, people being straight white men that have neckbeards, see that and be like, hell yeah, fight back against this wokeism. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
Like,
that's not fighting back against wokeism. That's the Chinese government thinking they can do anything they want anywhere in the world. That's what that is.
Look, there's a lot of nuance. We didn't include this in the news even originally because, again, right. I am getting fed up with like feeding the culture war, even if I'm coming from it from like I believe in progress, and I think that a lot of this stuff is good. There was like a Kotaku article that I guess like Journey to the West has a lot of female characters that the video game writes out, and this person was upset about that. I don't have all of the context because I don't know Journey to the West, but that was one of the criticisms levied against the game. And then all the hate monger or rage bait people, just so here's another woke feminist complaining about not enough women in video games, completely removing all context and nuance from the conversation. And then all of the incels jump on top of that because it gives them an opportunity to hate on a woman. And that's their only objective in life.
Yeah.
Like, I'm such a nice guy. Why don't women like me? All I do is spend hours every day online shit-talking every single woman I can find. And all these girls want to do is date hot guys that are at the gym all the time. They don't like nice guys like me who don't respect them and think that they should all be objects in a video game for me to masturbate to.
Yeah, but also the only women that they're upset that they're not getting their attention are the women that they are objectifying themselves.
Yes.
Like they're not looking at the K versus the average people. They're looking at the supermodel women who are objects, made objects
that have zero characteristics.
Right.
Yeah. And
like saying, well, they won't talk to me, like blah blah blah. It's like you're ignoring all of the normal people around you that would give you the time of day and would enrich your life if you would only let them.
I don't hate women. I love strong female characters. Fucking Sarah Connor and Ridley from Aliens. Like, these are great female characters.
That walk around in their underwear half the movie.
Yeah, and also cool, dude. You listed 2 women in movies that came out 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, it's because they don't make good female characters anymore. They're all like stupid girl bosses. Like, no, they're fucking not. They're not different than those old characters. It's just you've been fucking like manipulated into hating everything by dudes who are making millions of dollars from your hatred.
Right.
I'm preaching to the choir here. Like I said, no one listening to this podcast agrees with these fucking jackasses, but they're everywhere, man. And it's so annoying because I want to talk about Star Wars Outlaws like we talked about Star Wars Outlaws on this podcast.
Yeah.
I want to like talk about the gameplay systems and the story and the characters, and not that it's annoying that I don't want to fuck the main character.
Right. And hey, like if you're listening and you're here for that, like you're here for the conversation, the actual conversations, and that's why you enjoy listening because like it's separated from all of that shit on the outside, then like engage with us, write us an email, like talk to us about your thoughts too, and we'd love to have
let us know
a back
who
and forth.
You think is the hottest video game heroine in history. Is it Lightning from Final Fantasy 13? I'm gonna disagree, bro. I think it's actually
Ashley from Resident Evil 4.
No, because I was who's the Australian chick in Final Fantasy 13? Because I remember everybody was into Lightning, and I was like, no, dude, this Australian chick with the smoky voice. Yeah, give me some of that shit.
Oh my god.
Let's move on.
Yeah, how can we undo everything we've said in 10 seconds? Let's see.
Cool. Let's move on. As I mentioned at the top, we're not going to walk through all the September releases. If you want to see the long list of cool games coming out, head to shayitseverything.com and check out the show notes doc. We are going to highlight just a handful of things that are coming out that like we're super hyped for. There are still a lot of games in September that we are even like extra hyped for. And it makes being unemployed even more frustrating.
Sure.
So on the 6th is Astrobot.
Hell yeah.
This is my like one game that might overtake Helldivers 2.
Fingers crossed, man.
If any game is going to be my game of the year other than Helldivers 2, it's going to be Astrobot.
Really looking forward to it.
I don't want to have like too high of expectations, but everything I see, it just looks so fun.
Yes,
like we've just been talking about all this nostalgia. That's how this feels.
Oh
like,
yeah,
this is a new Spyro.
Yeah,
it's a new Crash Bandicoot. It's a new mascot platformer that will feel better because it's a new game and not one that came out 30 years ago.
Right.
And then on the 9th is Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. This I think looks excellent. There's just something about it that makes me nervous. I don't think it's going to suck, but I feel like the hype has kind of gotten too big for the game. And I'm just nervous that it's going to come out and it's going to be like, yeah, it was all right. It had its moments. Like it's going to be like a lesser Gears of War kind of game.
Sure.
Where there's just not because the actual multiplayer doesn't look as interesting to me. The co-op stuff I think will be super fun.
That seems cool.
But there's not a ton of it. Like there aren't that many different missions.
Yeah, they released a roadmap for it that includes
it.
more of it though.
Totally, but that's going to be dependent. Like, do people stick with it?
Correct.
Are they playing with?
Yeah.
Like they're not going to continue to do that if people bounce off. That being said, if it's just the main campaign co-op and then playing a couple hours of the multiplayer, that's probably enough to feel justified, as long as that stuff's super fun. And it does look very fun. What the Car? You played this in the Next Fest.
Yes.
You really recommended it. This is
do.
also on my must-play list.
You absolutely
given how
should.
you talked about it.
You should play it with Penny and Max, for sure.
Oh, is it that kid-friendly?
Yeah, I think it's like, visually it's super goofy and fun. I think they would get a kick out of watching it.
Is this PC only, though?
I don't...
or is it coming to Switch?
That's a good question. What the Car... That's a good question.
It is PC and Mac. At least as of now.
Bummer.
That's a bummer. I mean, I can play it on my Steam Deck.
Sure.
But it makes it harder because they'll just crawl all over me and their little knees.
like knives.
Yeah. On the 17th, The Plucky Squire. I feel like I've seen a lot of people like missing out on this game.
Yeah.
I think it looks unbelievable.
Looks incredible.
It looks so fucking cool. Check it out if you haven't seen gameplay. It's got a great mix of like a sort of top-down Zelda-esque or a side-scrolling where you can then go into more of like what was the Zelda game that came out 2 years ago? That was the remake.
Oh, Link's Awakening?
On Koholint Island. Link's Awakening.
Yeah.
It's got that kind of aesthetic to it, that kind of like gameplay structure. It just looks really fun. Fourth wall breaking. I'm pretty hyped for it.
Yeah.
Next one is on here you wanted to call out.
Yeah, the Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster on September 18th. This is huge because this is like... Well, okay, Dead Rising 2 is also good, but this is the best Dead Rising game. It's getting
100%.
It's getting a huge glow up. They're doing some gameplay improvements and stuff, but all of it very with a light touch, so it's still kind of preserving the original experience. This I'm extremely excited for.
Didn't they re-record the main lines with a different actor?
Maybe. I forget the particulars.
I thought
there.
I saw that because people were upset about it.
People are also upset that the same guys we were just talking about, they're upset that you can no longer get points for taking erotic photos in the game. They took that function out. People are...
If I don't want to fuck the zombie, why is it even in the game?
Right. Why did it just stay dead? So, yeah, September 18th, Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. And then lastly, September 18th, UFO 50. That's coming out on PC. That's that game that has its 50 video games in one, and it's kind of aping that old like Atari Anniversary Collection style, where it's a bunch of like NES, SNES level games, but they're all like full experiences. They're just going back to that old format of like old school games, but with newer modern sensibilities and takes on some of those old formulas, but still with like the simplistic graphics and presentation and stuff. That seems super, super cool. So I like with 50 games, you're bound to at least find a couple that resonate with you that you really like and are going to be, it's not going to be a major time sink, right? It's going to be like this lighter experience that is good for killing time and maybe hits some of those nostalgic notes depending on what era of games you grew up in.
Well, and just like it's got the people making the games are like a lot of the auteurs and solo developers that have found a lot of success in the industry.
Yes.
Like the dude that made Spelunky and Downwell and like a bunch of different other games that have really hit.
Yeah. Names you can trust.
Yes, yes.
I said lastly on UFO 50, but there's actually one more.
Yeah, rude.
Sorry.
This is another game. This will be probably my swan song for the Nintendo Switch, which is Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. You know, we just talked about Link's Awakening.
Right.
It's very similar in style and in structure, but you play as Zelda. You've got a dope wand that you can use to sort of construct solutions to puzzles and spawn an enemy so that you can fight the other enemies and run away and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
It just looks really like an inventive take on the Link's Awakening remake, and I'm a sucker for that like chibi style that they had going on.
Yeah, it looks great.
So I'm very hyped for that one. It'll unfortunately be a game that I play later after I have an income.
Sure.
But a game that I am gonna go ahead and spend money on because I can justify it so that we can play it for the podcast, which is our September Game Club game, Space Marine 2.
Hell yeah.
You probably all saw it coming.
Uh-huh.
The only other one would have been like maybe Astrobot.
Maybe.
But,
yeah.
Because it's co-op.
Yeah.
We're gonna Space Marine.
Oh.
I don't know anything about Warhammer.
We're gonna hammer this war in space twice.
I was trying to do like in Helldivers, like, oh, let's dive into hell.
Sure.
And then I realized I didn't know what Warhammer would be, so we're gonna Space Marine.
Hey, we're gonna have guns with chainsaws on them, but not in Gears of War, but also basically Gears of War.
Bigger armor.
Yeah, even like, bigger dudes. Bigger dudes, bigger chainsaws, Space Marine 2.
Hell yeah. I'm hyped for it. That'll be a lot of fun to play and obviously to talk about on the next episode. No emails this week, or month, rather. If you want to send us an email, you can do so at info@sheahateseverything.com. Let us know your feedback on the new structure. If you like the tighter format, if you're missing anything, this allows us to play like our games more often. Yeah. If we don't have like a big topic, we can go back to things like we probably hate that game, we probably forget that game. Just gives us more freedom to not like feel rushed because
we
want our podcast
stuff.
to be less than 5 hours.
Have new ideas.
And have new ideas. We won't. No, we will.
Yeah.
We already did. You came up with the show and tell kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
Mostly as an excuse to talk about all the shit you bought, but we can leverage it in future ways too.
I also like my James Bond tier list would be a good one for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And then obviously you can get plenty more Shea and Kyle goodness on games that suck and games that don't suck in the same podcast feed. So if you haven't checked those out, Games That Suck 1999, published a couple weeks ago. Next month, or I guess this month, middle of this month in September, will be Games That Don't Suck 1999. And then we're in the new, I guess it's not technically the new millennium because that would be 2001. But we're like, sure, like how on a computer, on like an old analog time clock, everything would switch from 1999 to 2000.
Right.
It's like a big era switch. So we'll do that the following 2 months. And then it's fucking time to wrap up 2024, man.
Shoof.
Which will be wild.
Good Lord.
December, we'll do Games That Suck 2024. January will be Games That Don't Suck 2024. Which means I need to play a lot more video games this year.
That's true.
So that I have stuff to talk about. But that's going to do it for this episode. Doesn't it feel so good? 2 hours?
Dude, it's only 10:40 p.m. That's incredible. Usually it's like 1 a.m.
Kind of late though. Oh yeah, it's been much worse, but it's still like at 10:40. I'm like, I should go to bed soon. I should be mature and go to bed soon. I won't, but I should.
Hey, 1 a.m. It's like 1 a.m. It's like, should I go drive to Taco Bell?
Yeah, and it's normally too late.
Go
like
to bed tonight.
But I can go to Taco Bell tonight.
Yeah.
So let's get out of here with something that we don't hate. And I'll say that today, I don't hate that it's almost football season. You guys won't have to listen to me talk about football, I promise. But I had 2 fantasy football drafts already at the time of recording. By the time that you're listening to this, I will have had 2 more with another 2 to still happen. I'm doing, I think, 6 leagues this year.
Wow.
And the first game of the season, baby, Thursday night, I'm hyped. I am bummed that I can't afford the NFL Sunday ticket because it's like $500.
Jeez.
But my wife said that when I get a job, I can buy it.
Okay.
So that's my motivation to get hired somewhere so I can spend money on football.
Does it get
that's
cheaper
my hobby,
as
baby.
the season goes on?
Yes.
Okay. I would hope so.
It's you both have to pay for YouTube TV. And you have to pay for Sunday Ticket because it's integrated with YouTube TV. So it's like fewer months of YouTube TV that I have to buy. And also they sort of prorate the Sunday Ticket package as the season goes. It's insanely expensive to watch football. But that's because I want to watch every game. I don't want to just watch the local games because I don't care about the Atlanta Falcons. I want to watch good football. So yeah, I don't hate that it's almost back.
Well, I don't hate that football season doesn't last all that long.
Dude, so funny. So edgy.
Ooh, I got him. Got him.
Oh, you think? Oh, what? Because what are you, gay? You don't want to watch the cheerleaders?
No, I just want my cheerleaders to look like people. And be treated
Kyle,
like people.
I have something that's going to blow your mind. The cheerleaders are actually real people. Like, that's not a compelling argument. It's different when it's a video game character.
Yeah, you're right.
These are actual women.
See, this is why I don't look at real life things. My arguments don't work anymore. They all fall apart.
These are actually really, like, talented humans that are in great shape and work very hard to do their jobs. It's just unfortunate that they're forced to wear, like, miniskirts and stuff. Because this is 2024. And that's weird.
Yep, and it also sets a precedent for, like, the younger cheerleaders in high school leagues and stuff, because then they just emulate what the older cheerleaders are doing, and then it's extremely gross.
Also true. And as two straight white men, we are the experts on topics of feminism.
That's true.
Our job here is to say that we are feminists, and we support women, and that's as far as we should go. We shouldn't try to fix the problem other than to support, because we're not women and we don't know what problems they face.
Yeah.
So
we're not allowed to stream Black Myth Wukong.
True, yeah. I don't want to bring in my feminazi propaganda.
That's right.
Although I will say they should have made the Monkey Man more attractive. Like, I don't want to fuck that Monkey Man, and I should want to.
Should have been a red-butted baboon.
I want, what are like the mandrills with like the nice big lips? That's what I'm into. The little mohawk. Yeah. Give me some of that. That'll be the sequel.
Dude. End it.
Right. Thanks everybody for listening. Please send us an email, info@shayhateseverything.com, to let us know what you think of this format. We want to make sure this podcast is giving you joy and fulfilling what you're looking for from it. So please do that. And we'll be back mid this month with Games That Don't Suck 1999 and the first Monday of fucking October. Gross! With another flagship episode of this podcast with a little bit more of a formalized structure. Maybe. But until then, peace out.